Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know Mr. Walker said he'll be a few minutes late, and I'm also waiting for Miss Oliver. So we'll just wait a few more minutes. Okay, give me one more second. Miss Oliver's having trouble finding the link, so let me just email it to her and she'll be right on.
Good morning, everyone, and my apologies. I was having a problem connecting. I hope everyone's having a good Monday morning. So I want to go ahead and, sorry, I'm now trying to get back to my agenda. I would like to welcome everyone to Hartford Public Schools Finance Committee. My name is Kim Oliver. I am the chair of this committee. Good morning, everyone, and my apologies. I was having a problem connecting.
I think somebody's YouTube is not muted. If you happen to have that on at the same time. And well, we're good. I think we're good now.
I think we're good now. Sorry about that. I don't know if that was me or not, but fun technical issues this morning. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and start this meeting. The first item I see is a contract continuation for Division Ed. I'll send over to Ms. Santiago, who then directed to the speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for joining. And I do want to apologize. Somehow I mentally moved this meeting to next week because we have policy tomorrow that we rescheduled. So I was a little behind on sending out the items, but and the link. So thank you for your patience. So for Decision Ed, we have Dr. Silver on the call. It's a contract continuation. She will actually take the first two, Decision Ed and Dillinger Red. So Dr. Silver.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everyone. Decision Ed is our vendor for our performance management software that allows us to have dashboards that are available within all of our schools and also to our public and for our Board of Education and our website. It is the contract this has been in place for a number of years. And during year one, the district was granted perpetual licensing for the Decision Ed K-12 performance management software, which also includes IBM Cognos. And that is the technology behind the dashboard displays and the real-time reporting that we're able to do. So those dashboards are current within 24 hours of the data being submitted into our student information system. So this dashboarding system, we have continued to develop it. And right now, our student information is available in that dashboard. And we continue to develop it so that our human resources, Office of Talent Management, and our finance data can also be integrated into these displays. And this dashboard also integrates the Qualtrics data that's collected. So that would be the climate surveys, the walkthrough data, as well as other measures that we're doing with Qualtrics. And that is an overview of this contract. The amount is $58,200, and it is funded through special funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silver. To my board colleagues, any questions?
No, I'm just apologizing for tuning in here after a little bit of commuting.
No worries. Good morning, Mr. Walker. And I should introduce you as Mr. Walker, Ms. Escribano, Ms. Daricel Ledger, and also with his hand raised, Mr. Rigger. You have the floor. I'm not hearing audio for you, Phil. Are you?
I don't see mute though. You might have to change.
Ms. Oliver, I think you're muted also.
Thank you. I appreciate that, other Phil. So Mr. Gregory, do you want to go ahead and type in the chat? And then again, just to my other board colleagues, any questions regarding the Decision Ed contract renewal? Great, let's give Mr. Rigger a chance then to write his question in. his question, how we compared this vendor to others. Dr. Silver.
Thank you so much. We have, okay. I believe when the system was adopted, I wasn't on board when the system was adopted in, I believe, 2019. And so I do think that it would have gone through a process if it was over $50,000. Since it was adopted, we've invested considerable staff learning and resources of staff time in building out the tool itself with various data submissions and really building a repository in our data warehouse of all of our different data sets that we have. And so it has not been compared to other vendors recently, I don't think.
Thank you, Dr. Silver. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. I
Urbano.
know this was in the other committee. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a lovely holiday weekend. I apologize. I am also multitasking here. I'm heading to an appointment, so I apologize. I really do. I will join back as soon as I'm done there. But my question is, and again, I know this went through committee already, but for my sake and for the viewing audience, you know, I think of PowerSchool, right, as one of those other mechanisms that we collect data points and information and sending out information to our teachers and our parents, X, Y, and Z. So kind of related to Phil's question, why haven't we just, I guess, gotten a different level of membership, so to say, with PowerSchool? Have we compared those two? I just want to have that sense of background. And I apologize if this was already discussed in the previous committee.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Escribano. PowerSchool has a lot of essential features to the work that we're doing with collecting and maintaining student data. But the ability to integrate data sets from, say, finance or the Office of Talent Management or external data sets out of Qualtrics or from other places, it's not possible within PowerSchool. PowerSchool is our student information system. So we maintain our student information there, and we are able to, in many regards, display and report that data, and that's all internal. It's not an external facing. It doesn't have the capacity to be external facing.
Thank you for that clarification. I really appreciate it. Just to have a sense of clarity, especially for a viewing audience.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Walker.
Yes, more of a comment. Dr. Silver, I think, and it's not just for you. As we keep looking at these tools, the question that came up has had me thinking that this is a board. I'd like to kind of modify the criteria that comes to the meeting, because the questions that were asked would help me, like in making the presentation, what comparisons were made, what's the virtue of this over the others. This is kind of information that coming into the meeting, let's say within your presentation, would be the kind of information that would give me the insight that says, oh, okay, this is why I'm approving this versus all others. Often the fact that it's good doesn't do enough, because they're all good. You wouldn't use it if it wasn't good. So I hope like these questions today become kind of the criteria. And I'm just going to take the action as a board too, that maybe we should assist in creating the criteria that we need, so that the information is there and this is a little crisper kind of analysis and then approval process. But that's just my comment, because the two things that were mentioned are often things that I find missing when I'm looking at continuations of a tool or a partnership. By the time you get to year 2 or 3, you forgot, why do we like these people in the first place? Why do we get them? What was their key value? That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. There is a template, I think, Christina, based on Mr. Walker's comment and other questions that have been asked. we probably should take another look at that template. So the template in board docs, the initial intention was to be able to give us that background and context information, but I think you bring a very good point, Mr. Walker, and let's take another look at that template to make sure it's providing us the information we need so we could quickly have that context. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We're moving to the next contract continuation. Dillinger Rad is still with Dr. Silver, I believe.
Thank you very much. And yes, Dillinger Rad is a vendor that we sought out. We actually, over the past 4 years, right, the Hartford Public School System has invested considerable resources in the development of our DataWise skills, which is a data teaming approach out of Harvard. And in this process, we focus on student data and bringing teams of teachers and administrators and department leads and others together to look at student data, to examine our practices and evaluate our processes and focus on how we can better support learners in their environment. The Office of Performance and Accountability, we were looking 2 years ago for a partner who could support project management because in developing our strategic plan a couple years ago in 21-22, we realized that we really needed strong project management skills. And so we went to Harvard, we sought them out and the folks there at DataWise and asked, is there a project manager, someone who's skillful with DataWise? And we worked with them for about 7 months trying to locate a candidate who could support this work. And we were unable to find someone by working through the organization through Harvard and the DataWise team that's there to do this level of planning and support within our schools and with our staff. And so we moved forward with looking a little more broadly, and we were fortunate to come across Dillinger Rad. Dillinger Rad has expertise with research and applied data, and that's what RAD stands for, research and applied data, and also have on staff a trained DataWise coach. We did invest significantly in coaching development in our own school district and had a number of coaches. Unfortunately, because of our staffing shortages, we weren't able to draw on those coaches because they were serving in classrooms and within our schools. And so Dillinger Rad came to us with this expertise in DataWise and also significant project management skills. So we have been working closely with Dillinger Rad, and they have expanded the supports and our ability to monitor and track data teaming and DataWise practices throughout the district. They've also helped us build artifacts and resources that facilitate different types of DataWise meetings. And also they've because of their expertise with data, one of the people on the team comes from CT Rise. So if you're familiar with the work that we're doing, I'm sure you are, with CT Rise, with all the dashboards in our schools, this really was a wonderful marriage for us to come together with this partnership, really, a wonderful partnership with this particular vendor that we finally found after almost a year of searching. And so we are continuing the contract, or asking to continue the contract, as Dillinger Rad supports the technology behind monitoring our projects, helps us with project management at every level of the DataWise process, from the classroom and content level teaching to the school leadership to the departmental meetings that we have and cabinet meetings. And that's an overview, and I see Mr. Rigger has his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Rigger.
If you're speaking, we don't hear you still. You may have to chat.
Now?
Oh, wait.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening with my computer. So, Dr. Silver, I'm not sure if this is a question for you or others on the team. Curious to understand what's the breakdown of the contract as it relates to the technical skills or the technical capabilities versus the project management. I heard kind of two components within this, right? One is being kind of the backroom technology, and the other one being project management. And then part B to that, and I think this is probably more for Mr. Forster, Chief Forster and Chief Negron. If it's project management, that's a huge component, then my natural question is there the ability for the district to develop those capabilities where we don't have to rely on Dillinger Rad to continue that service or that at least that part of the contract?
Thank you for that question. I believe I can answer it, but if there's someone else that, okay, so I'm going to take on that question. So project management has been, it goes beyond just the technology of project management, which Dillinger Rad sets up systems to track milestones and breaks down into detailed tasks, the different aspects of the projects, and monitors and reports on that, and also meets with various stakeholders in our schools, our school leaders and other people in various departments in the district to manage the projects. So there is the possibility. We have a very small team in performance and accountability, and just don't have the staffing right now and are really leaning into the project management piece of the Dillinger Rad contract. I would say it's probably about 70% of what they do, but it does involve a lot of in-person meetings as well. So, but there is possibility, there is potential to certainly take that back. They are integrating it with the technology, which is about 25% of the work that they do. And the technology is around leveraging existing resources that we have in Google, in Decision Ed, and other reporting tools and reporting apps in order to better leverage and support and facilitate the meetings taking place at the schools and in departments around data teaming and looking at data and helping to move the needle forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if I heard correctly, roughly 70% of this kind of contract is around project management. And the original intent was to have coaches to kind of offload some of those responsibilities, but due to staffing challenges, right, which everyone's seeing across the country, that's not coming to fruition as we expected. Again, I guess my challenge for the team is, and you'll probably hear this across various contracts and initiatives, is right, like how can we build that muscle internally, so we're not reliant on outside vendors to do the work that we could do in-house. Like, again, clearly I recognize that there is a staffing shortage, but I think that's just been the theme for the past couple of years, right? How can we build that internal capacity? So I just want to make sure that we are staying down the path and we're not relying on other folks to continue to deliver work that we could do in-house.
Thank you, Mr. Rigger. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman Berman. I'm going to co-sign on that same comment, and this may be at a Phil Penn or Deputy Foster level, and that's a program management office. I mean, it does seem like an organization of this size. I get that Dr. Silva doesn't have the talent within her own particular group, but it seems like there's a number of situations where we're paying consultants because they're bringing project management expertise or some data analysis expertise. And it feels like, would it cost so much more to maybe spend $500,000 to $600,000 and just build 4 people to be a PMO, right? Or kind of stats group. Places I've worked, that's what they've done. Just because you tend to need those 2 skill sets all the time on the complex projects and programs you do. Is there any pathway to get us there? That'd be my thought, is to potentially make this a district-wide capability so that folks like Dr. Silver can leverage it when they need it. I understand that probably her group, she can't afford to have a full-time project person just do that one thing. That's either a comment, is it just not possible, or something that it's under consideration?
Thank you. Mr. Foster, I see your hand. I don't know if you're responding to Mr. Walker.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Good morning. So those are both Chair Ragura and Mr. Walker. Those are great points. And I think we're absolutely thinking in those same directions in terms of how do we, excuse me, beef up our internal capacity, and then how do we, and part of that analysis, I should say, is what are the pieces of work that really rise to the level of could be done by somebody full-time, versus what are the pieces where it's a discrete set of expertise that we may or may not need full-time, but we need it, periodically. And I think when I think about the renewal of really the contracts that came before you today, or the 2 that Dr. Silver's talked about, I think of part of what I think the way we're thinking of that is, we need to continue those services while we're still doing the analysis that you guys are talking about, to understand how much project management capacity can we kind of bring in-house, data analytics capacity, et cetera. And I echo Dr. Silver's point, supporting all of our schools with her team around the data work, and the project management around the data work is challenging. But I will say that that kind of work of analysis is underway, and it really is trying to find that balance of what is the work that rightly should be handled in-house, and what is kind of discrete expertise that really, there's not enough demand for it that it's worth bringing somebody on staff. And I think we need to find that right balance. But to both the points you made, I think we can probably build more of that muscle and do more of this work internally. But I think part of the renewal of these contracts is to give us that time. So I hope, 8-12 months from now, if not sooner, we're able to come back to you and say, here's some things we're going to do or change or do differently as we move the work forward.
Yeah, if I can respond, I appreciate that feedback, and it's that's the direction that I would hope to. I think approving a service needed right now is understandable. The question that I'd get asked more than not is, why so many contracts and why so long? And so it's a better response to say they're working on it, and at some point you'll come back with a more permanent solution. So yeah, that makes it easier to justify approving in the near term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to our next contract continuation for Allaview.
Thank you. And we have Chief Penn, who's going to tackle this one.
Good morning, all. Let me speak real quickly about the Allaview renewal or extension. 3 years, and I suppose 3 CFOs ago, there was a decision made without a lot of finance involvement to take Allaview as our Munis overlay software. So Allaview, and I think most of you are familiar with it, is a software package that sits on top of our existing Munis accounting software, where we can both budget for the upcoming year, track our year-to-date spending, and see it in a way that is typically better suited for folks that aren't finance people and people that aren't as well versed in utilizing Munis. It's got some visual elements of it that allow users to be able to see spending at a fairly quick level. And at this point, we've come to the end of what was initially a 3-year contract. And in talking with Allaview as we approach this potential extension, one of the things that we wanted to do was break this into a 1-year contract with 2 options of a 1-year extension. So 2 1-year extensions that could potentially follow on after that. And that was designed specifically for 2 reasons. Number one, to allow us the opportunity to see if there's other software out there that may accomplish this in a more cheaper or better fashion than what we're using right now. Although we've heard positive feedback about Allaview from our internal users, I wouldn't say that that's been universal, right? I mean, everybody has a different experience with when they go and see new software and that type of thing. But you know, I think we owe it to the taxpayers to go see what else is out there, to see if there's something that better utilizes taxpayer money to accomplish the same thing. And then perhaps from a usability perspective is equal or better than what we're getting from Allaview right now. The second important element to remember about Allaview is that in addition to that budgeting and tracking capability that we have for our financial work, they also are responsible for taking all that data and producing our budget book with it. So that is now embedded will be embedded in the cost of the contract, whereas before it was a standalone item that we paid for separately. And then and that ties into the fact that we'll see a $10,000 reduction in the proposed cost of the first year because we had some production issues with the budget book for 23-24. We were able to negotiate a $10,000 discount in what would be the first year. Into 95,000, just a little bit over 95,000 for what would have been a little bit over 105,000. So that's the intent of the renewal. Believe it or not, we're starting the budget process again in 6 months. So we want to make sure that we have capabilities in place to be able to do that. But then along the way, it'll also have the capability to see what else is out there in the market that may also integrate with Munis that may work better for us as an alternative.
Thank you. Any questions? Giving everyone just another moment. Any questions? I'll ask a quick question. So Chief Penn, one of the things you mentioned is the internal users haven't been universal and saying that it's been helpful. One of the goals was, to your point earlier, to make it easier for folks to understand financially where dollars are going. And I believe it's also Allaview that helps like at the school level.
Yeah.
If that's correct. Have we at least seen that most users are finding it helpful as opposed to directly working inside of Munis?
I think most people continue to work inside Munis. I think there's just a higher level of trust on the Munis data. And people are used to seeing the Munis format in certain ways. I know internally within finance, we're always in Munis, right? Just because that's where we live and breathe. I would say outside of the finance organization, it's 50-50 in terms of what the particular user is more comfortable with. And so I think part of the issue may be is we go into this 1-year extension, potentially doing some more training with Allaview on how, if you're an end user of this product, once your budget data is in there, how do you use it more effectively to see how you're spending as it goes along the year?
With those visualizations, et cetera, that you mentioned that are actually within the tool.
That's exactly right.
Thank you. All right, one last chance for if there are any questions or comments. Seeing none, we're going to move on to contract continuation for ESS. Ms. Santiago.
Thank you. The ESS actually is the only contract we have here that was vetted, discussed at the Teaching and Learning Committee. Ms. Jen Hoffman, who presented at that meeting, she's not in today, but we do have Dr. Negron. And I will say upfront that we do have a few follow-ups that we are still working on to get to some board members, but I'll have Dr. Negron give a brief overview.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. So this contract is for Effective School Solutions. As you know, we have been working with them. This is our second year. And the need for this contract was to help us meet the needs of our students as it relates to mental health support. What ESS offers is a complete team of licensed clinicians who are currently supporting in 8 of our buildings through a 13 person team. So this contract is looking to bring in 1 more year of support, utilizing our ESSER funding. And what we have learned in terms of the systems and the structures, Jen Hoffman, along with a team that we have been working very eagerly on how it is that we're going to think about how to sustain this and pass ESSER, because we know it wouldn't be possible just by the mere financial cost. But again, I do want to restate that we have learned a lot in terms of what is working, in terms of the structure, and the team does have sort of like a working plan on what that might look like when we are planning to do this on our own.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Let's see. Ms. Darcel Ledger, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. I was trying to search for that hand raising button. Thank you so much. I have a few questions. One question, and thank you for the presentation. One of the questions that I have is, what schools are these services? What schools are these services being provided specifically?
So the services are being provided to our 3 comprehensive high schools. So that's Hartford High, Buckley, and Weaver. And in addition to that, we bring the services to our 4 middle schools, Milner, McDonough, MLK, and Burr. And in addition, we do serve Betances STEM Magnet, because as you know, they're in the same building with Burr. So those are the 8 schools right now that get the direct services from ESS.
Thank you. And can you also tell me what is, like, how many students are being serviced specifically?
So this year, again, this is for primarily intense mental health services, what we call Tier 3. And then in addition, they also offer some Tier 2 supports. So this year, they have provided over 6,700 therapeutic services to a total of 85 students, with 11 students still pending intakes.
And your capacity of students that can be serviced?
I believe they try to do, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it was 12 per site and clinician. So I don't want to give you a number because I don't have that number right on me and I don't want to misquote it. I can send you that back along with the other questions that you posed to Jen Hoffman that she's going to be sending your way.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll wait for those answers then.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Walker.
Yes, it's unclear if the cost benefit is good. I mean, what I'm wondering, 85 students, $1.7 million, 13 staff. I'm just wondering, would it be just more cost effective to have these students served by Wheeler Clinic or other providers in the community? I mean, it's a tremendous amount of money, a lot of staff. 85 students being served by 13 staff doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like full capacity. So is there some analysis as to why this is the most cost-effective way to serve under 100 students?
So I would answer that question by saying that number one, as I stated, right, the fact that these are licensed clinicians that are able to be in our spaces and support our own faculty so that we're able to still keep our students in district accessing the least restrictive environments. That is one thing. And then I would also say that at least the outcomes that we have seen now, last year and this year, I mean, we're speaking about things like 20% decrease in terms of the disciplinary offenses from these students, again, that are that require intense, again, therapeutic services. Also seeing 20% decrease in chronic absenteeism, and the fact that about 69% of them are also maintaining their grades. We believe that those are great outcomes in terms of what we're getting at it time again, when, as you know, there is a shortage. And right, one of the things that we're saying, as we're thinking about after ESSER, can we do this on our own? We believe we're going to be able to do this on our own, but it's going to take us a long time to try to recruit these type of licensed clinicians that we want to have so that we're able to run our own program.
All right, if I can give a quick response, right? I had a conversation with a licensed social worker within Hartford Public Schools who works at elementary school. Now she's saying that she's not fully utilized in that role because she's doing administrative tasks and other activities. So it feels like there's the possibility to both hire our own staff and then unleash them to just do this one thing. I mean, the only thing I see that you get with this contract are people who could be 100% focused on clinical services. And so it feels like people that we currently have in the district aren't unleashed to do 100% clinical services. So I'm just wondering, to your point, can we press ourselves to leverage our resources, bring them in, and then just unleash them to do this? It's almost $2 million for 85 students. I guess, how long, Chief Negron, do you think this is before we bring our own? How many more years do you think we need to pay this kind of money?
So, Mr. Walker, I completely understand where you're coming from. Let me answer your last question first. So we're asking for continuation of this contract for next year. That would be our last year. We always said that we were leveraging our ESSER funding for this purpose so that we had time, right, to kind of like create our own. And that is still the plan. We haven't deviated from that. Second, though, in regards to the commentary from a social worker, indicating that he or she is not being fully leveraged to do this kind of work because they're doing administrative staff and activity. I would love to know exactly the details of that, because right now that is worrisome to me. We know that we still have shortages as it relates to our social workers. And there's plenty of work to go around. So I would love to get more details around that particular situation at a later point.
Mr. Walker, if you're speaking, you're on
Sure.
mute.
Right. It's worrisome, but I'm not necessarily going to out this particular person because there's shortages at all schools. Most staff people at schools, teachers and otherwise, are doing other activities to cover the shortage. So it's not, I mean, there's a reasoning for it. There's a shortage going on. So I just think we'll take it as a challenge point. All I'm really saying is, in the midst of the shortages, what I'm saying to you as a leader, let's find a way to take certain staff and say they won't participate in, dealing with the localized school staffing shortage. Some staff should be pulled out, just like your contract staff, and allowed to just do their one task. That's all I'm really saying in that case. And I understand it's a challenge to you and everybody because we have district-wide staff shortage. So it's not so much an indictment, it's just a challenge to as we move forward, really keep a keen eye on critical staff like clinical people that shouldn't be doing any administrative things outside of clinical work. That's just my opinion.
Completely
Thank you.
understand, Mr. Walker, right? And again, I would urge us also to think about that, right? Like that's one story across an entire district. And again, I just want to reiterate how grateful we are for Effective School Solutions and the need that they've been able to fill for most needy kids, what we've learned through the process, and also taking advantage of these federal dollars that came our way, knowing, right, that we're building towards our own sustainability. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, my only comment was going to be, you mentioned sustainability, and I just want to plus one that it sounds like you have a plan you're working through. You mentioned that you and the team have learned a lot, so definitely looking forward to how that ends up. So that's the only thing I had there. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our reports. Thank you, Dr. Negron. To our year-to-date financials, handing over to Chief Penn.
Well, thanks everybody again. Not a tremendous amount to speak about with respect to the financials. And again, just to clarify, this covers through the month of February. As is typical, we run a little bit behind in our reporting to you that way. We'll be closing the month of March actually today, as a matter of fact. You're starting to see some of the spending tick up a bit. That's expected as we start to make our way through a number of payments that are now due, whereas we had encumbered, in particular, tuition for the year that we've started to make payments on those encumbrances now. And in particular, I highlighted that we had about $6.5 million of tuition payments that went out during the month of February. You may recall that last May that we announced a retention bonus for employees that were with us in the 2021-22 school year that returned with us for 22-23. The payout of that retention bonus was during the month of February as well. That was just a hair over $2 million in terms of what was paid to staff that returned. And the other comment just to make is that we feel that we can, projecting the deficit for the general fund, we've narrowed and decreased that slightly to a range of about 2.5 to 3.5 million. And of course, that's mostly being driven by continued vacancies that we have across the district. We currently have, just to update the number that was in the report, closer to 1,400 requisitions that we're making our way through right now, processing those and getting them converted into purchase orders, which would then encumber the funds on those respective budget lines across all those different requisitions. As we get through that, that will give us a better sense of what non-personnel accounts will still have money in them at the end of the year. It's very typical for us not to spend all the non-personnel items down to zero. So typically that becomes a source for offsetting part of our deficit as well. And as a result of that, we're still kind of guardedly optimistic that we can have the full amount mitigated by the end of the year. One of the things I do want to make the Finance Committee aware of, there is a ongoing dispute's probably too strong a word. Ongoing activity between us, the state, and CREC regarding resolving residency issues around some of the students that CREC is claiming that we owe tuition money for. As a result of that, the state is elected to do a withholding of some of our ECS money and basically put it in escrow until the matters are resolved. One of the things that concerns me about that is that I've noticed that when there are ECS holdbacks, we tend not to get the full amount of our ECS funding from the city in terms of our revenue. And what I will tell you about that is that's not allowed under the state statutes because we're an alliance district. If we were not an alliance district, the city in which we occupy, we're a school district will be allowed to reduce the school district funding by the drop of the ECS, but by the result of the fact that we are an alliance district, they actually can't do that. And given the fact that, you know, we're in a deficit situation, we're probably going to have some conversations around making sure that we're fully funded, even if there is that holdback. Now, in theory, the back end of that means that if the state is holding back that money in escrow, the state then becomes the paying party on whatever needs to get resolved with CREC. But I've seen this happen now 2 of the years that I've been here, that we've had an ECS drop for various reasons, and the full amount of the revenues were not delivered to Hartford Public Schools. So I will keep the board apprised of what transpires with that as we go forward. But the superintendent and I thought it was important to flag that for you today, that is now an outcome of the ongoing conversations between us, CREC, and the state.
Thank you, Chief Penn. I know you're going to give us some additional updates. I just want to ask a question here, and I also see Mr. Walker is also here. In case he has a question, I want to pause here. You mentioned that usually not able to recruit what is basically the reduction from the city dollars based on that ECS holdback from the state. I'm assuming there have been conversations with the city to address this, or
We're starting those conversations. I made a point about it at the end of the last fiscal year. Those were kind of brushed aside, so there may need to be some more intensive conversations around it this time.
Okay, thank you. If you can keep us abreast of those conversations, I appreciate it. And I do not see Mr. Walker has a question, so let's continue. Thank you.
I'm sorry, he does or does not have a question?
I do not see a question, so continue.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you.
All right, just very, very quickly on the COVID relief spending, you'll see that we spent about $4 million during the month of February. Again, that was mostly tied to the retention bonus that was paid out. Those were ESSER dollars that were associated with that payout. We're continuing to see a plan forward that would take us down to spending the remainder of the ESSER 2 grant as close as we can to June 30th of this year, but certainly all of it by the end of the deadline, which is this coming September 30th. And then the cabinet is engaged in an exercise right now to go through particularly all the non-personnel items that are in ESSER to ensure that things that we had intended to spend that were non-personnel related, the intent is still there to spend those funds. And if not, we're also developing sort of a secondary list of other things that we've become apprised of that are non-personnel in nature that would fit within the confines of the ESSER grant guidelines that may make sense for us to utilize those funds as a one-time opportunity to solve some of those issues as well. So with a little bit over a year to go, the intent and the plan forward is obviously to spend that down as close to zero as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, do you have any questions or are you all set?
Yeah, I'm fine with the your comment. Keep us abreast. I think the circumstances that Chief Penn brought up has not dramatically changed. We just want to see how this plays out. So
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping us abreast.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. My only comment is I know as you're looking through planned expenditures as opposed to new opportunities, you do mention the fact that we are looking at a projected deficit. So I'm hoping that it's going to be also part of the larger conversation of the ESSER dollars. Obviously, we do have another year. We don't, but I know our, I'm going to speak a little colloquial in a sense here, spend rate that we anticipated was not where we thought it was for various reasons. And so hoping that I can see that needs to be a holistic conversation with all these other components.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we are done with the report. Thank you. And with that, I believe that was our final item on today's agenda. So with that, we can go ahead and have our meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, this morning. Again, sorry we were behind a little bit. And until next time, take care. Thank you.